Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. I can't believe it. It's finally here. Oh, I'm so excited to bring this to you all today. If you're feeling unfulfilled, body pain every single day, not sure where to turn, feeling stuck in your life, really curious about holistic living and spiritual practices, listen further. I have created this beautiful course that is my methodology that I've used into my own life, into clients, students, readers' lives, and it is called Metaphysics Your Health, Find Your Soul's Purpose. Health and purpose are directly correlated. You cannot have one without the other. When you're feeling fulfilled, you become healthier. When you're healthier, you find your soul's mission and purpose. And that is exactly what you're going to learn in this course. You're going to learn about all of the metaphysical approaches to health and wellness, holistic living. You're going to detox your internal world, your external world, and apply all of these amazing integrational tools and practices into your life. This is a foundational approach that you can come back to anytime. Whenever you level up and you need to come back to the basics, you can come back to this course whenever you need. I'm going to have a ton of bonus items, and you'll also get a special add-on to work with me one-on-one. And if this is something that you are intrigued by, I highly recommend, because the price will go up after a couple of months. So if you're listening to this now, go get it while you can. And I'm also going to have guest speakers to talk about astrology, human design, how that applies to our health and our lives. And with that, it is going to be life-changing. So if you're ready for that and you're ready to let the old you go, let your old life go, then this is the course for you. If you are a one-on-one client and a community member, you get automatic access to this course. So welcome to Metaphysics Your Health. I will leave the link in the show notes, or you can find it at www.holistichumanperformance.co/digital courses. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw. Gena Bradshaw Vitale. I have to get used to saying that, guys. We have a very, very special guest with us, a dear friend of mine, Kitty Packman. I'm so excited to have her on. We're diving into human design, HD living, one of my favorite topics, something that was a total game changer for me when I entered into entrepreneurship and also started learning. It helps you to learn more about yourself. And we're going to get into it with Kitty Packman here today. So without further ado, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you, Gena. And yes, you're definitely going to have to keep adding on that Vitale, because it's going to take a little bit of time, but it is well worth it. Nick deserves for you to say that Vitale. So
he does. He deserves it. So let's get into it. I consider you like a business bestie. Like, we always bounce ideas off of each other. We're both in we met in the spiritual space. And it was when I started getting into spirituality and really started applying it to my life, to my clients' lives, into my own business. And we just you can't get rid of me now. So
well, and I think especially with both of us being projectors, and it's been really cool to watch your trajectory of kind of like really stepping into that. And I'm sure it's been for me as well, because I think the most fulfilling thing about being an entrepreneur is having other people that get it, and like to watch their journey and they get to watch you grow it's just like the greatest thing in the world. So I'm always like eternally grateful for you and our friendship, our forever friendship.
Same. And seeing you grow and prosper into what you're doing today, so much that I was like, hey girl, I want you to come teach inside of the Metaphysics Your Health course because this is important information and you know your shit. And it just is so eye-opening. And when we apply this to our lives, so when I first, we're talking about like, oh, what's a projector? We'll get into it. But when I first started learning about, because growing up, I had, I guess you could say, like a shorter energy battery. And I would kind of ask like, I would think, like, what is wrong with me? Like, why do I get so
Mm-hmm.
exhausted with certain things? Like, my energy battery is just not as much as some other people. And now, learning about human design, I get why. So, do you want to kind of like just touch on that and how it can be applied to obviously your business, but also like your life, your health? Like, how can that be applied to our daily lives?
I love that you bring that up because I think there's so many, especially people in our space that are projectors or that are, we call them non-sacral beings. So
Mm,
essentially, 70% of the population are generators or manifesting generators. And that means that they literally can produce new life force energy. So when they're excited about something, they literally are like the Energizer Bunny and they just keep making more and more energy. Whereas for us, we can be very excited about something and really committed to it and like know that it is our purpose and still need to take a nap. Like we actually need to. Like it's
I
physically
literally need a
required.
nap.
It's literally required. And that's why I love that you bring it up because I think so many of us grew up with so much self-judgment and, just constantly like you were saying that like internal narrative of like what's wrong with me? Like everyone can keep doing this. And I think we either kind of fall into the camp of like having a family that doesn't get it and is basically like you need to get your shit together and like we're all doing this and you're not. And I think all families maybe somewhat are like that sometimes. Or sometimes you'll have that like really almost like overly supportive family where it's like, oh no, we can't bother Gena. Like she's in her room, And I wonder for you, obviously, especially having grown up, sick, like you had this, they call it kind of like, so I'm also a licensed therapist. It's always like
Yes, yes.
so
That
funny
this
that
is
it's
the
like,
cool part
we
about
kind of
Kitty.
forget
She
that,
can
right?
Yes, but this is the unique part about you that I love is where you
Yeah.
take that aspect and you integrate it into what you teach with human
Yeah.
design. And it's so easily applied, like the way that you explain it, the way that you can help people
Yeah.
integrate it.
Because that's
It
exactly what it was just literally coming out. I'm like, well, the limited sick role. And I'm like, that
right.
is therapy language, that's not human design language. So yeah, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And it maybe sounds kind of like, how does that have to do with what you're doing? But it really does because it's really about seeing the whole system. So, like seeing the family as a system or the couple as a system, or even when you work individually, even now when I work with my, coaching clients individually, I'm seeing you as a part of a system. Like
Mm,
internally, you have all these different systems within you. And then you're part of a family system. You're maybe part of a romantic couple. You're part of your family of origin. You're part of friend systems and work systems and all these other systems. And that plays a huge role in how we experience life, right? And so that's exactly what I was saying was that for you, you might have also, while you knowing your family and knowing how athletic everyone is, you probably
yeah.
had a little bit of camp one of like, get it together. Like it's Saturday
Yes.
and we're all up and it's time to be working out or
Yes.
whatever. But then there probably also might have been times when you were sick where it was kind of like, oh, like Jenna's sick. Like we have to like let her be and like kind of like I said, almost like make too much space for it, but it's not supportive space. Like I think it
Mm,
takes time for people to really understand how to support us, especially projectors. So I know I said sacral beings are the generators and mani gens. So the non-sacrals are us projectors like Gena and I, manifestors, which are about 9% of the population. They're kind of like the original leaders in the old world. And then reflectors who have absolutely no centers defined, and they are really the most empathic. They're the ones who need the most rest, and they're the ones who are like the most connected to the earth. But for us projectors, even though sometimes we have a lot of definition, I know some projectors who have a few centers defined. Like it's not about not having as much energy necessarily, but it's more that for us projectors, our energetic aura, and that's a lot of what we talk about in Metaphysics Your Life, right? Is that our energetic aura extends outside of our body. And so for projectors, it literally like takes the other person in. It like is like an arrow right into their soul and it brings them right in. And so that is an exhausting process, both for
mm.
people if they don't want to be taken in, but as well as for us. Like we are all day long projecting other people's stuff outside of us. And so that's why it's so important for us to take these breaks and to really do a lot of the deconditioning work to clear out everyone else's stuff, their emotions, their beliefs, their energy, because we literally physically take it on. And if we don't realize it, like we take it on as if it's our own.
So this is where, again, the metaphysical stuff comes in, where it's like cleansing your energy, protecting your energy, which I have a ton in the wellness center. And think of it as energetic hygiene. Like that is what it is, energetic hygiene. And can we just let's go back. What does it mean to have like center? You're talking about sacral defined centers. Like, what does
Yep.
that mean for people? How can for the listeners, they're like, what's that?
Yep, for sure. So basically, human design, because I really didn't even, I don't know how much we've even really talked about human design on your podcast. And I think you said you've done a few episodes on
I've
it, right?
done one episode with
Okay.
but like a while ago. This had to be like
Okay.
last year when I interviewed her. But
Yeah.
let's still go into it
Do a
because
quick little, yeah,
every single human design coach has a different way of explaining it and
for sure.
just a different way and perspective to uh applying it to other people's lives. So I'm really
Yeah.
curious your take on it.
Yeah. Okay. So human design basically looks at the energy of the cosmos 3 months before you were born and then when you were born. And so essentially it looks at how the energy around us imprinted on you, kind of like as your soul, as you were deciding which body you want to go into, and then when you actually came into that body, when you were born and when you entered this world. And
3 months
essentially what
prior, I did not know that.
that's your
Mm.
unconscious design. So when you're
Mm.
born, that's like your conscious personality. That's the one that you tend to associate a little bit more with. You tend to like connect a little bit more if you know your profile lines, right? Um, but the unconscious, it's 3 months before. And that's why I always think of it as like your soul deciding, like that's the one I want to be in. And we're going to
Mm.
make it a little more complicated because life is never that easy, you know? And so, anyway, it gives you this picture of kind of like your unique energy. And the way that it does that is through these different energy centers. So, depending on which planets were where when you were born in 3 months before, it lights up what are called different gates. So, if you're familiar, if you've ever heard of the gene keys, these are the different gates. They're also the gates from I Ching. So human design combines astrology, I Ching, the chakras, Kabbalah, quantum physics, NASA data, a bunch of different systems, right? And so there's these 64 different gates in I Ching. And depending on where the planets were when you were born in 3 months before, certain gates are kind of like lit up or defined.
Mm.
And then when you have a gate that's lit up in one energy center, so if you're familiar with the chakras, each of these energy centers has a different purpose. And so, for example, the sacral center, which is the one that I said, the sacral beings, if you have a gate lit up in the sacral center, which is your creativity, your womb space, your creation center, and then
Mm.
maybe you have a gate, for example, lit up in your root center, so groundedness, security, money, those are going to become a channel. So those two gates kind of connect. And then those energy centers are defined or lit up. And what they'll look like in your chart is that they'll literally be colored in compared to white ones. Those are the undefined ones. And so when we have a defined energy center, essentially that means we have that consistent energy coming to that center, to that topic. So if you have your sacral center defined, like generators and manifesting generators do, they kind of like have that consistent flow to creativity, to creation itself. So they're literally able to, and their strategy, because of their energetic aura is so responsive, they're literally looking for things to respond to. And when they feel lit up and they find something that they want to respond to, they can go and go and go and go on it because they're excited, they're lit up. For us projectors and manifestors and reflectors, that is not the case. So we have other energy centers defined, except for reflectors. They don't have any defined, but we don't have that consistent ability to keep making more life force energy. So, for example, I'm a projector and I only have two energy centers defined, my G center, which is like my identity center, and then my throat. And so I know who I am and I'm able to speak on it, but I don't necessarily
Yes,
have
you
the
are.
energy to do it like all the time. And right, like I can't necessarily do, even though I think I can. And I think that's one of the traps of spiritual entrepreneurship, right? Is it cracks us open because we live in a society that wants us to all perform like generators. Because, and I
Mm.
know this is one of the things we want to talk about, so it's kind of a perfect segue,
Yeah.
the new way that we're moving towards. And so the old way essentially was just manifestors and generators and mani gens. The reflectors, I always kind of say, were like off in nature somewhere, like hiding and like hermits, like not even connected with the, the world. And that, as they need to be, like as they should be. But so in this old system, projectors only came onto the scene in 1781, which is
Mm.
when we discovered, I believe it's Uranus. I'm 99% sure it's
I
Uranus.
think that's what you
Um,
said because I remember
right?
listening to it in the course, and I'm pretty sure that's what you said.
Yep. Okay, good. That's what I'm like. I never positive on my planets, but I'm pretty sure it's Uranus. So up until that point, because of the length that it takes, like Saturn to, I guess, go all the way around its orbit, that was basically the approximate lifespan of humans. So it was
Mhm.
like 40 to 50 years or so, right? And so we lived in this world where people only lived to be up to maybe 40 or 50. You were lucky if you lived to be that age. And so you were expected to just like work and work and work. And it was all survival, right? It was like literally go out, find your food or grow your food or make the money to buy your food. And then you didn't expect to live very long.
Right.
However, right around when we discover Uranus, that's when people start living a little bit longer. Everything shifts. That's really kind of like a shift in consciousness, right? When we discover a whole new planet. And
Yeah.
so what happened is new people came on the scene, and that's us projectors. And essentially we came to shift the old system. So that old system was like generators and manifestors. And essentially, the manifestors were the leaders, but there were so few of them that you kind of needed the whole system to act like they were generators and manigens. And only the manifestors would come through and be like, I'm not doing that. Manifestors have a very closed off aura. I always joke they kind of have like resting bitch face. And so it's like you can't tell a manifestor what to do. So they wouldn't fall for the you have to act like a generator or a manigen. But the reason I say all this and why I say that for us spiritual entrepreneurs, especially projectors, it kind of is it's tricky is that we are living in a world that expects us to be generators and
Mm.
manigens and expects us to be able to keep producing new energy and keep going and work. I mean, right, the typical thought is 9 to 5, but for entrepreneurs that is not at all the expectation, right? I know you're shaking
No.
your head. It's like we're expected to be working 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Your business is your life, all of these things. And like we've been sold this idea, like the girl boss, like that's what you need to do to make it. And yet we know that that is not, both like anecdotally from our life, we know that that is not how our energy works, as well as when you have the language of human design. It's like that's not how I was designed. I wasn't designed to work that way. And that doesn't mean I can't do it, I'm less than them. It's just that's how
Right.
they're designed to work. We're designed for very, very different work, you know?
Right. We're designed to like up level the consciousness and help
Yeah.
people because I know that's something we both, right? We both have similar things going on, but we do it in different ways. But our main thing is to teach people, like, hey, there's a different way that you can
Yeah.
do this. There's a more efficient way that you can do this.
Yeah, that's like literally exactly what projectors came here for. So we came here starting in 1781 to start shifting to this new way, to remember that of course we all get to love our lives. Like it sounds radical, and that is horrible. Like it should not be radical to say that we all get to love our lives and enjoy the work that we're doing. And I think there's so many people that literally don't even think it's an option. Like they're just completely like, it's fine for me to, to work this job, and this is the best it's ever going to be, and just have to count down until I can retire. It's like you get
Yeah.
to enjoy your life. Like you get to, and maybe you don't necessarily put so much emphasis on your job. Maybe it's not the biggest part of your life, but it shouldn't be something that you dread, right? And same with
Right.
the other parts of your life. Like it all actually gets to work for you when you know how to align your own energy, rather than constantly looking outside of yourself for the answers, or looking for, that next like dopamine hit that's going to get you through the weekend to, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Now, what are some like dude, we need to teach this in school. Like
Seriously.
this is a curriculum. Like seriously, when I started learning about this, my whole like just my mind opened up to something so completely different. Like, wait, so why was I beating myself up about living this way, trying to catch up with everybody else? And listen, I work hard, but the difference is when you're taking like deliberate, aligned, intentional action. Like that is where we're coming from. Like that is how you can tap into your energy. And something about do you know, I'm like trying to think if I know any reflectors. Like
I
they're pretty
know
new on the scene
two,
too,
like
right?
two. And so as far as I know, reflectors they've been around since as long as projectors have. I believe
Okay.
that's why I always say, like, I think they were there and just sort of like off doing their own thing. Like literally,
Okay.
because reflectors have no definition and their strategy is to wait a full lunar cycle to literally feel their energy move with the moon. They're very
Mm,
connected to nature. Like they're very like they're more of the natural world than they are of like this man-made world. So I think they were always there, but they were like the outcasts, like they
I
were the
see.
ones that people like saw as crazy and like almost kind of like they were okay with being seen as crazy rather than conform. Because I think again, we always have a choice, right? Like literally we always in every single thing have a choice. And if you think of back in the day, if like you were being different than others and there was only the option of like, well, there obviously we go back 200 years, there wasn't the option of starting your own online business, right? Like there
Right.
was like, this is what you do for work, or you don't work and you don't have money and you starve or whatever, right? And I think most people would then make the choice to do the work that everyone's saying that this is the work that's available. And there were probably some people who were like, well, I'll just go and like literally live in the woods, right? And like forage and whatever. And like that's what I imagine the reflectors as. Like they were there because there had to be, right? There had to be some. And I just think that like the way that the mechanics work of like them having no definition, that had to have been an option from the beginning. You know what I mean? Like it just kind of made sense. I don't know, but I would guess that they were always there and just kind of like doing their own thing.
Mm. So now how can people start to integrate, HD living into their lives? Because this is what you do. So how can people start? Where can they start? How can they find out like what, their human design is and kind of like take it from there?
Well, so what I always say, and it's not the answer that anyone really wants, but it is the truth, and I know it because I walked it myself, is if you're just getting started with human design, especially if you're new to all of this, like if
Yeah.
you just kind of are dipping your toe into astrology and energy work and things like that and manifestation, to really let yourself just learn like one or two key concepts, like your energy type, your strategy, your aura. I call HD's big three. Learn your big three and live them for like 6 months. And it's so annoying and frustrating, right? Because we want something more than that. We want it to be like, here's my 12-step process. And when you do those 12 steps in this exact way and you turn around 3 times to the left, then you're going to magically have manifested what you want. That's not how it works, right? And the whole key to this is it's a whole new way of living. It's a remembering and it's a shedding and deconditioning of all of the old beliefs and all of the things you were taught that were not real for you? And so it takes time and it's going to bring up some like conflict probably with people that are close with you, especially with like your family of origin, because people are used to you showing up the way you are right now. And so when you decide
Mm,
to make a shift in that, and it will be, right? It has to be. It's looking at how have I not been showing up as my real self and how can I show up more as that? And so there's naturally going to be some friction that comes up because you're changing how you're showing up and you're feeling like you're more authentically yourself. And yet the people that feel like they've known you for 30 years, however old you are, they're like, that's not Gena. That's not how she is. She's normally really sweet and she goes along with what everyone said, right? Or whatever, like your old story is. I think for so many women, especially, we have this story of people pleasing and just kind of like giving people what they want so that they'll kind of get us off their backs, or get them off of our backs. And so it's unlearning that and it's learning how to show up. And again, especially if you're a projector, right? You're basically saying, I need to completely shift the way that I'm showing up in my life. And obviously not everyone can like quit their full-time job and start their own business, or not everyone wants to, truthfully. But I think that it's just finding ways to, if you are a projector or a manifestor or a reflector and you realize like I'm not built for these straight 9 to 5 days, how can I every 2 or 3 hours get up and go for a walk around the office, or go, grab a drink of water, or go to the bathroom and like hide in the bathroom for 30 seconds and breathe, whatever it is that you need to do. Like these are all things that I've done back when I was still working full time. Because when you're in that space of like sort of knowing, but also not knowing how to actually bring it into your life, it can feel like you're doing it all wrong when really every little thing you're doing is doing it right. It's just like taking those steps, like doing the next right thing. And then all of a sudden you look up one day and it's like, oh, my life actually does look really different now that I've just been following those small things compared to what so many people do, myself included, is like dive into everything HD. And I want to know my profile and my authority. And I want to know all my gates and I want to know the channels and I want to know my cross revolution cross, all these things. And it's like, we don't need all of that. If you try to do all of that, you're not going to actually learn it. Whereas if it's just like, I'm a projector, I know that my energy is intense and takes people in. And so I need to
Yeah.
keep that in mind. And I have to wait for my invitations and my recognition. That's what's actually going to make the biggest difference.
That's crazy that you're bringing this up. I literally was talking to my client about this yesterday and how the whole like people pleasing mentality and things like that, and the universe is kind of like testing her in a way because she was one way before we started working together, and now she's learning how to say no and create those boundaries and really stepping into this type of lifestyle. And when we were talking about it, I was like, babe, you need to go into Metaphysics Your Health Course and
Yeah.
go take a look at what your HD energy type is. And like we went over like how to find that. And I said, go look at the video on this specific energy type and learn more how you can lean into that energy to help you navigate these situations where before we started working together you had committed to something and now you're beating yourself up because you're like, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, we
Mhm.
can navigate through this, but it's going to be uncomfortable because
Yeah.
now you're showing up as a different person, which takes time. A lot of people expect it to be like an overnight jump. It doesn't work like that. It's like these small increments. It's just like you when we started training together and you had these specific goals in mind and it wasn't just about the physical aspect. Like that comes with the and like working with your own energy and going deep into the subconscious mind. And I mean, to see like where you've ended up and like it's just so cool to see. But it took small increments and showing
Yeah.
up for yourself.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I really like, obviously it takes physical action, but I really do like, it sounds like we're just saying it, but it really is the truth. Like the energy work makes the difference. Like it really does. It's what gives you the energy, first of all, to do the physical. But for a lot of us, again, especially if you're a projector, it's like that unlearning the old way of having to go, go, go all the time and thinking that that's the way, you got to like push to make it happen when really that's not how, like, as projectors, we are meant to basically be the lighthouse. Like, we are
Mm.
meant to stand where we are and shine our light and trust that the boats are going to come to us. And that doesn't mean
Which
it's like
is
only
which is
passive, but
actually really difficult to do when you
yeah.
first try to. I still kind of like struggle with that, but yeah.
But again, because again, it's like that's not how our world is built. And that doesn't mean like taking no action. Obviously, like on social media, like that's your page. You post what you want to post. But that's the key, right? Is posting what you want to post, not posting because you think you should post it this way or that you saw so and so do it this way and it worked well for them. It's like, what do you actually want to post? And that's when people do really well, right? And that's when
Mm.
their businesses take off, is when like you are so embodied in your truth and settled in like who you are, and you're unafraid to do the weird thing online or to say the thing that's a little controversial, because it's like, well, I know that that's who I am, and that's what makes the biggest difference. And again, I've seen so many people, I feel like, have that like shift, where it's like, oh, like now you just, even in myself, I think in these last 6 months or so, like I really noticed it in my voice. Just like all of a
Mm.
sudden my voice is so much more embodied, and like I just know that I'm speaking from my truth. Whereas I used to think I was speaking from my truth, but it was very much like, well, this is how so and so sounds online, so that's how I'm supposed to do it. Or like, I know this worked for them. And I am certainly not pretending that I'm perfect or that I don't still get in my head, because I think we all do.
Of
But
course.
just noticing, it's like, how do you bring yourself back to yourself? You know what I mean? In those moments, because that's really all you ever need, is just like that coming back to yourself, coming back to your own natural energy, and like what do I need in this moment? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and trusting that. Absolutely. I could not agree more. Um, so now let's talk about kind of what you've created in Metaphysics Your Health course because it's very specific. There's so many avenues that you can go down, obviously, with human design. And we wanted to make it very specific to just health, well-being, and how you can shift into transforming your life. So talk to me a little bit because I was like, Kitty, create whatever you want. Like, so talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, and what I'll say about my creation process is it's very intuitive. Like it's always truly like what what needs to come through here rather than like what my mind thinks. And so of course my mind initially was like this needs to be very physical health focused. Like that's what this is. That's what Gena does. She's all about the body and blah blah blah. And it's funny because I do a lot of body work too in terms of like embodiment.
Mm,
Um, but then when I actually sat down to do this, I'm like, it's really just about the energetic aura. It's
yeah.
about understanding your physical energy so that you can understand, yes, how that affects your physical health. That's certainly in there, but also how you interact with other people, right? Like, how does my energy as a projector interact with your energy as a projector versus a generator or a manifester? Um, and then just some other fun little tidbits of ways that you can actually use this information to integrate it into your life. And what I'd say is, even if you know that you are a projector, for example, watch the other videos. And there's also an introductory video where I go in depth about
Yes.
human design and all the things. But watch the other types too, because it's really helpful to understand other people. And even if it's not it's like, yes, if you are a projector who's married to a manifester or a generator or a mani-gen or something, it's going to be helpful to understand your partner's energy. But even if you're just like, you're single, you're not thinking about other people, it's helpful to understand how other people are different from you, right? Like, we don't know what we don't know. And so you only know what you've known as your experience. And so for most likely, like if you're like us, you're a projector who's known what it feels like to kind of be treated like a generator, but we don't actually know what it is to be a generator or a mani-gen. And so I invite you to go watch all of them because there is like a lot of helpful kind of like juicy nuggets in each one. But really, it all comes back to that energetic aura because at the end of the day, like that's where you get your strategy and all of that from is understanding how your energy shows up in the world because your energetic aura, I can't remember if I said this yet, your aura extends outside of your physical body, right?
Mm,
So we are, at least I believe, and I know Jenna does too, we are spiritual beings having this human experience, right? Like we're like a divine soul that's in this physical body, or, however you envision it. And so we know, obviously, like we can see a physical body, we can feel it, we can touch it, it feels real. And our energy extends outside of that. So yes,
mm.
like if I literally rub my hands together and touch you, you can feel that, but you can actually feel it without me even physically touching. You can just feel my energy. And the way I always explain this to people is when you go into a room and you can just feel that someone like got into a fight in that room before you were in there. Like you don't need to know, you just feel that energy. You can feel other people's energy. And so when you understand what your energy, your energetic aura is like, you understand how you interact with other people and vice versa, right? It's really helpful. And it is fascinating to go and look at your partner's human design, your parents, your children. It just helps you really deepen your relationships and understand yourself and them so much better.
Yeah, because we're not all the same. Kenny and I are complete like we're both projectors, but we're completely different individuals. We still have completely different energy types, right?
Yep.
And learning how to interact with other people is going to be so much easier to navigate life because then
Yeah.
we're not like pulling this like knot, right? And we're not one's pulling this way, one's pulling other way the other way. You're making this knot tighter. Instead, you're like, oh, like you're thinking of like, oh, okay, like they're perceiving themselves, like I'm seeing their energy a little bit. I see a little bit of like Manny generator, or like, oh, okay, like is this a reflector? Is this like a mirror of what I need to see about myself? It's really, really important to understand that because it's gonna make life so much easier. And not to say that we're not going to have challenges, of course. Like life is life. It's always going to keep up, down, sideways. It's never linear. but it just helps you to navigate. So we're not holding on, we're not causing distress in our lives. We're able to let the energy flow and show up for ourselves of what our souls really meant to do in this lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. Really at the core of my work, it's about knowing how to lead yourself, right? And
Mm,
you can't really lead yourself if you don't know who you are. And
mm,
so a huge part of the kind of like core foundational work before, in my private mentorship or any of my group programs, anything before we're really getting into how are you leading yourself and intuitive development and all that, it's like, who are you? Like literally, who are you? And through human design, but also through some of those therapeutic techniques and all these things, it's like peeling back the layers of who you thought you had to be to actually remember who you really are. So that then, as we're creating from that place and talking about your goals and what you want to call in and the strategic plan for that, it's coming from your own unique aligned leadership, right? It's coming from your energy because you know who you actually are rather than whatever version you thought you had to be.
absolutely. As we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom you would like to leave with the listeners?
Words of wisdom. I mean, I think that when I think about our relationship, and I know we started with this, so it's kind of like a nice way to end too. It's whether you are or are not an entrepreneur, if you're doing anything that is a little outside of the box or that you need, like you're going to need that support on, right? Like, and I think that finding your people is so key. And the only way you're going to do that is if you show up as your truest self. So I really think that, again, whether you're starting your own business, you have your own business, or you're not at all, you're just maybe looking for your new people. It's like allowing yourself that permission to show up as you truly are, not just for you, but to realize like your whole life opens up when you actually show up as your truest self. And you'll call in your people and you will get where you're going. You really will. It's just that like staying committed to yourself. And certainly we both know that like when you decide to do things differently and start living your life in HD, it's really challenging because it's like I always say it gets worse before it gets better, right?
Mhm.
Because you're challenging the homeostasis. You're like kicking up all of the dirt that needs to be kicked up, but no one wants it to be kicked up. And especially as projectors, we're often the ones to do that. So if that is you, we are with you. We love you. We see you. We've got your back. And find your business besties because it makes all the difference.
Oh gosh, it is so helpful, man. Our conversations, our voice
Literally.
memos, like we met up for a coffee last week and we were just like, venting and talking about all the things that we're going through in business and not even that life and just, kind of how we can support one another. And it's so imperative. And it's funny because we were talking about this, like I'm thinking of most of the people, not most of them, but a lot of the people in my life are projectors. And
Yep.
it's cool to see how you just call those people in that are aligned with the energy that you're at.
Yep. And especially
So,
because we're only 20% of the population, but I agree. I have so many projectors in my life and so many projectors who are healers or entrepreneurs or doing something to make the world a better place. Because again, that's literally what we came here for. Like we literally came to this life. And what I'll say is that even if you're not a projector, if you chose to incarnate at this time because we are getting ready for this big shift,
yeah.
and I know we kind of touched on it. We didn't even get too much into it, but
Yeah.
essentially in the human design world, it's 2027 is when we talk about this big paradigm shift. In the world of astrology, obviously Pluto has been shifting all around, but is about to station in Aquarius for the next 19 years or so.
Yep.
And so no matter what energy type you are, if you chose to be alive right now, you're part of this new way. We are creating a new earth together. And so again, regardless of whatever energy type you are, you're part of that. But especially projectors. Projectors, if you realize you're a projector, you're listening to this, you're like, what does this mean? Shoot me a message. I would love to talk to you about it because it basically means you're here to make a really big difference and to really help usher this in. And that's what we're both doing. And so many of our friends are doing in this space. And it's just so cool to see and to do alongside each other.
Yeah. Stand in your power. you know, sure, it might be scary, but don't be living in fear. This is not anything scary of like this new earth. This is a very like abundant, prosperous time. Sure, are things going to get a little ruffled, a little ruffling of the feathers before we head into there? Yeah. But it's just like any system. You need to rebuild the foundation and rebuild the foundation. It's like construction. We're knocking that shit down and then we're rebuilding a whole new system of living, and it's going to be something completely different from what we grew up with. And, it's going to be testing you on every single level. But know that you have support from us. Know there are other people out there like you, your soul tribe community, your soulmate clients, whatever you want to call it. We are here. We're in it together. We're in this new earth of we instead of I, and like a power structure.
Yeah.
We're all
That's
here
exactly what it's
as
about. Like
we.
literally. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe. Kitty, where can people find you?
So I am everywhere pretty much as Kitty Packman. So KittyPackman. I'll give you whatever links you need, I'm sure, to put in show
I'll
notes or
put it in
things
the
like
show
that.
notes. Yep.
Perfect. Yes.
Yes, yes. And go head into Metaphysics Your Health Course. You're going to learn all the things, all the goodies, subconscious reprogramming, your soul energy type, meridian meditations, and of course, you're going to be learning about human design in there as well. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.